broadcasting live from SOAHR 2023 at the Gas South District Convention Center in Duluth, Georgia. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio, brought to you by Oberman Law Firm, helping you navigate the complexity of workplace issues. Now, here's your host.
And hello again, everyone. John Ray back with you at the Gas South District Convention Center, SOAHR 2023, the annual conference of SHRM Atlanta. And a special thanks to Oberman Law Firm and their support for these interviews. I'm here with Lawrence Henderson. He is with Boss Consulting. Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you so much, John.
I appreciate you stopping by.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about you and how you're serving folks day to day at Boss Consulting.
Yeah, so again, I'm Lawrence Henderson of Business Operational Support Services, LLC, a.k.a. Boss.
I love that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm in the organizational leadership, culture, value space, executive coaching of individuals and teams.
Oh, and you're speaking.
I am.
And talk about what you're speaking about.
All right, y'all ready?
I'm ready.
It's called Culture Wars, putting the posters into practice.
I love that. I should have buckled in before you gave me that title. I love that. So let's get into those details because there really is a mismatch between what companies say they want to do and what actually happens. Yeah. I know that's shocking to a lot of folks, but it's true, right?
Yep. The mismatch really comes into a couple of things. The posters are representative of, the value statements, all the aspirational things. But then there comes a time where that's not enough to have it in play when it comes to people development. And so there becomes that mismatch of
right.
How people engage versus how they live every day.
And that employees can see that.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to paper that over or however it is you want to try to explain that. Mm-hmm. But it's really important to be authentic in what you're talking about, right? And what your values are, right?
Yeah, well, and one of the biggest things there is making sure that your values aren't a moving target. And so for a lot of organizations, it goes with, all right, what's the headline of the week? That's what will make the most important. Right. And then whatever associated descriptors go with that. Mm-hmm. One in particular, we start talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, but an organization being clear and being open with themselves about where they are, but then where they actually desire to go, because that's what's important to employees is that authenticity and how you engage the work.
Right. So this is a big subject we're talking about, right? And you can't solve all those issues in 45 minutes or however long you're going to speak today, but talk about some of the big themes that you see and what you're asking HR leaders to pay attention to. Yeah,
so the three big things, I love acronyms, and so the three objectives are connected to leaders operating with humility, openness, and transparency. And breaking those three things down, the humility, again, is not thinking less of oneself, but it's thinking of oneself less. And so to get into the culture conversation, you can't be all about me, get the ego out the conversation.
Right.
The openness to actually, again, figure out what's going on in our organization and how are we going to learn together. And then that transparency, not the bleeding heart transparency, but the transparency to say, this is going to hurt, but guess what? We're here for it. We got the people in place. We grow together.
And what's the payoff on the other side?
Yeah.
You've walked leaders and companies through this. What's the payoff on the other side when they undergo that pain?
Yeah, so to quote a famous philosopher, Deion Sanders, when you look
He's a good philosopher.
When you look good, you feel good.
Yeah.
And when people get into this work and really get into this work, and you use the word authenticity, when they're authentic with where they are but where they want to grow to, and they begin to put one foot in front of the next, they begin to feel better and better. And that's literally a tangible thing. Most leadership development work and culture work is quantitative research, not qualitative. So it can be felt monetarily, bottom line, the whole 9 yards.
And that's the if I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to me one of the most underappreciated parts of what you do. Is the monetary, the quantitative payback that you get from going through that work.
Yeah. Well, and it if I may, the thing is, over the years, leadership development and training and different things were such paper or initiatives that we check boxes on that individuals weren't actually assessed throughout their careers. And so it was an event. And so if you stick with people and you assess along the way, that's the keys to the city, to see how people are actually changing the way that they engage their work.
So, Lawrence, one thing I'm curious about is how this has changed in terms, your work has changed, given the fact that I think HR seems to be on the ascendancy in terms of companies paying attention to HR issues and leaders. Mm-hmm. And does that make your work easier for companies to absorb, or what? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think it makes it more comprehensive now.
Yeah.
Because, again, if we think about the history of how HR started, it was an operation. It was a function. That's why it was very transactional, very tactical. Yeah. Where now there's this focus now on people and culture. Mm-hmm. Now it's holistic. Now it's comprehensive in its approach. And that's why you see a lot of organizations that have an HR department, but they also have a people and culture function as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So talk about your work at Boss Consulting and the types of leaders and companies that you work with.
Yeah, so I like to say my niche market is leaders at all levels. And so I have a tendency to become people's learning partner in organization sizes of 50 to 500 because, again, they're invested in the operation. And so I come alongside them to actually develop those learning strategies, development strategies, engagement strategies with a focus on sustainability. Because it's not, I'm a huge believer in, again, my Army service, blame it on that. A huge believer in is we walk it, we talk it, we live it. And so we put something in place to help organizations do that well.
Yeah. So thank you for your service. My son's in the military, so I thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that work. It takes, though, humility to reach out to a guy like you, though, right?
Yeah,
it really takes some self-awareness. Mm-hmm. So how does a HR leader know when they need to pick up the phone and call you?
Yeah, when it's beyond a hurt that they believe they can fix. Mm. Because a lot of leaders who call me, they're fixers by nature,
right.
And they can't figure it out. Yep. And so I generally get those calls to say, I can't explain the hurt, but I know the hurt exists, and we're looking for a partner. And my goal and my job is to not make them feel called out. They already identified it. So my job is to call them in, to call them up. And so I walk alongside them. We partner together. And then, again, the accountability and ownership is transitioned throughout the process.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because this is not about shame, right?
No.
This is not about blame, shame. It's really about just being real, mm-hmm. and as you say, being humble and walking through that process that you can help people with, right?
Definitely. And then again, tagging on to the openness part of it, right? And I think that executive coaching part of me is what also helps that, because again, I understand that it's not my goal, but it's my job to help you get clear about what the steps are. And so again, I ask better questions than I do tell and give advice.
Well, but you've got some good answers for me today, so so I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to ask you questions. Oh, yeah. But I'd love it, maybe as we close, if you could share a success story. I know you can't mention names, but if you could just talk about a success story in general, in terms of just that illustrates the great work you do.
Definitely. So we just finished up, me and a group of consultants that I partnered with a group of leaders who were scientists as backgrounds. And so it was a cohort where we took through 6 months of engaging topics of effective communication, giving and receiving feedback, situational leadership, getting executive coaching along the way. And when we did their celebration to kind of close out this phase of the engagement, you had leaders that said out loud, I've done things in the last 6 months that I've never would have done had I not been a part of this training. I've leaned into asking for promotions. I've leaned into asking for more responsibility. I've changed and reframed the way that I've thought about hard, tough things, and I've leaned into it. And I've been so grateful for having a coach along the way.
Wow. What great work. Mm-hmm. I am delighted that you came by, that we could shine the light on the work you do. Mm-hmm. You're doing terrific work, and it deserves to be celebrated. So thank you, Lawrence. We appreciate you so much, John. Yeah. Thanks again.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. This episode of North Fulton Business Radio is underwritten by Oberman Law Firm. Oberman Law helps local, regional, and national clients manage the sensitivities of employee relations in the workplace.